Commander Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the Concordia and watched the massive alien world grow larger on the main screen. After 6 months of travel through space, they had finally reached Veltar, the home planet of the Zephyrian Empire. This was the most important mission in human history. Everything depended on what happened in the next few days. The Concordia was not a warship. It was built for diplomacy, with comfortable quarters for guests and meeting rooms designed to impress visitors. But even so, it carried the best shields and weapons that humanity could build. Space was dangerous, and first contact with alien races did not always go well. Sarah had been chosen to lead this mission because she was good at talking to people and solving problems. She had served in the Earth Space Navy for 15 years and had never failed a mission. But she had never dealt with aliens before. No human had. The Zephyrians were old. Their empire had existed for thousands of years before humans had even learned to build cities. They controlled dozens of star systems, and their technology was far beyond anything humans possessed. Most importantly, their space was directly in the path that human colony ships needed to take to reach the good planets on the far side of the galaxy. For the past 50 years, humans had been sending out colony ships to find new worlds to live on. Earth was getting crowded and people wanted room to grow and build new lives, but the best planets were on the other side of Zephyrian space. The aliens had always refused to let human ships pass through their territory. Until now. 3 months ago, the Zephyrians had sent a message to Earth. They were willing to discuss allowing human ships to pass through their space. But they had conditions. They wanted to learn about human culture, and they wanted a human diplomat to bring Princess Kithara, the Emperor's daughter, back to Earth for a cultural exchange visit. Sarah looked at the datapad in her hands. Princess Kithara was young for a Zephyrian, only about 80 years old. The aliens lived much longer than humans. She was next in line to rule the empire. After her father died, she had studied human languages and customs, and she had specifically requested to visit Earth. This was exactly what the diplomats back on Earth had hoped for. If the princess visited Earth and liked what she saw, it could lead to a real alliance between humans and Zephyrians. It might even lead to trade agreements and shared technology. The possibilities were endless. Dr. Elena Vasquez walked onto the bridge. She was the mission's expert on alien cultures and ancient history. She had spent years studying what little information humans had about the Zephyrians. "The Emperor's palace is sending us landing coordinates," Elena said. "They want us to land our shuttle in the main courtyard. That's a great honor. Most visitors have to land at the commercial spaceport." Sarah nodded. "How much do we know about their customs? I don't want to accidentally insult anyone." "The basics," Elena replied. "Don't look the Emperor directly in the eyes unless he speaks to you first. Keep your hands visible at all times. And whatever you do, don't refuse any food or drink they offer you. That's considered very rude." The communication system beeped. Lieutenant Torres, the ship's communication officer, looked up from his station. "Commander, we're receiving a message from the planet. It's in perfect English." "Put it on the main speaker," Sarah ordered. A deep, musical voice filled the bridge. "Welcome, humans of Earth. I am Emperor Thakvan of the Zephyrian Empire. We are pleased that you have come so far to visit our world. Princess Kithara is eager to meet you and learn about your people. Please land your shuttle in the palace courtyard as soon as you are ready." Sarah picked up the communication device. "Thank you, Emperor Thakvan. We are honored to be here. We will land within the hour." As the communication ended, Sarah felt both excited and nervous. Everything had gone perfectly so far. The Zephyrians seemed friendly and welcoming. The princess wanted to visit Earth. The hard part should be over. But something felt wrong. Sarah had learned to trust her instincts during her years in the Navy. There was something in the Emperor's voice that bothered her. He sounded worried about something. An hour later, Sarah and Elena stood in the shuttle bay, putting on their dress uniforms. The shuttle was loaded with gifts from Earth: art, music, books, and samples of human food. They also carried formal documents from the Earth government, offering friendship and cooperation. "Remember," Elena said as they walked toward the shuttle, The princess has been studying human culture for years. She probably knows more about Earth than most humans do. Don't be surprised if she asks difficult questions. Sarah laughed. I'm more worried about answering the easy ones. What do you tell someone who has never seen Earth what it's like to watch a sunset over the ocean? They climbed into the shuttle with 2 security guards and the pilot. As the shuttle left the Concordia and flew toward the planet's surface, Sarah looked out the window at the alien world below. Feltar was beautiful. The continents were covered with silver and blue cities that sparkled like jewels. The oceans were a deep purple color, and there were 3 small moons visible in the sky. The palace was enormous. It looked like a mountain, made of crystal and metal, reaching high into the sky. As their shuttle landed in the courtyard, Sarah could see hundreds of Zephyrians watching from balconies and windows. They were tall and thin, with pale blue skin and large dark eyes. They wore long robes in bright colors. Emperor Thakvan was waiting for them at the bottom of the shuttle ramp. He was even taller than the other Zephyrians, and his robes were gold and silver. Next to him stood a younger Zephyrian who had to be Princess Kithara. She was beautiful, with silver hair and eyes that seemed to hold ancient wisdom. But as Sarah walked down the ramp to meet them, she noticed something that made her heart sink. The princess was not carrying any luggage. There were no servants preparing for a journey, and the look on her face was not excitement or curiosity. It was fear. The meeting with Emperor Thakvan did not go as planned. Sarah and Elena sat in a great hall made of crystal walls that showed the stars outside. The emperor sat on a throne that looked like it was carved from a single giant gem. Princess Kithara stood beside him, but she had not said a single word since the humans arrived. We are grateful for this opportunity, Sarah said carefully. Princess Kithara will be the first Zephyrian to visit Earth. Our people are very excited to welcome her. Emperor Thakvan looked uncomfortable. His large dark eyes kept moving between Sarah and his daughter. Yes, about that. There has been a change in plans. Sarah felt her stomach drop. What kind of change? The emperor sighed, a sound like wind through metal pipes. My daughter has decided she will not travel to your world. The words hit Sarah like a physical blow. The entire mission depended on this cultural exchange. Without the princess visiting Earth, there would be no alliance, no safe passage through Zephyrian space, and no future for human expansion to the outer colonies. May I ask why? Sarah tried to keep her voice calm and respectful. For the first time, Princess Kithara spoke. Her voice was soft but firm. Your world is cursed. I will not travel to the place that devours the sky. Sarah looked at Elena, hoping. The cultural expert could explain what this meant, but Elena looked just as confused as Sarah felt. I don't understand, Sarah said. What do you mean by cursed? The princess stepped forward. Our ancient texts speak of worlds that hunger for the void walkers. Ships that come too close are consumed. The void itself becomes twisted and wrong around such places. She shook her head. I will not go to Earth. Emperor Thakvan's face showed anger and embarrassment. Kithara, these are old stories, myths, and legends. The humans have come a long way to meet with us. The stories exist for a reason, Father. The princess's voice was steady. Our ancestors wrote them as warnings, not as entertainment. Sarah realized she was watching a family argument that could destroy human expansion into space. She had to do something, but she did not understand what the princess was talking about. Princess Kithara, Sarah said, could you tell us more about these ancient texts? Maybe we can address your concerns. The princess studied Sarah for a long moment. You truly do not know, do you? Your own world hides its nature from you. Before Sarah could ask what that meant, an alarm began sounding throughout the palace. Guards rushed into the throne room and whispered urgently to the emperor. His face went pale. What is it? Sarah asked. Emperor Thakvan stood up slowly. 3 of our escort cruisers were patrolling near your world's moon. All 3 ships have just reported complete system failures. They are drifting helpless in space. Sarah felt cold fear wash over her. Are the crews safe? For now. But their ships are being pulled toward your world. Our rescue vessels are afraid to get too close. The Emperor looked at his daughter. Perhaps the old stories are not just myths after all. Princess Kethera did not look surprised. How many ships has your world claimed in recent months? Sarah was confused. Claimed? I don't understand. Ships that have gone missing near Earth. Supply convoys that never arrived. Explorers who stopped sending messages. The princess watched Sarah's face carefully. You do not know about these either. No, Sarah said. But even as she said it, she remembered something. There had been reports of missing ships, but Earth Command had blamed pirates and technical failures. Sarah had never thought to connect them. Back on the Concordia, Lieutenant Torres was receiving messages from Earth that made him more worried, by the hour. The missing escort cruisers were not the first ships to have problems near Earth. Over the past 6 months, 17 different vessels had reported strange gravitational readings near Earth's moon. 5 ships had gone missing completely. Earth Command was telling the public that these were just normal space hazards. Pirates, asteroids, equipment failures. But the real reports told a different story. Ships were being pulled off course by gravity that should not exist. Some vessels had managed to escape, but they reported that their instruments went crazy when they got close to Earth. Commander Chen received these reports while she was still in the palace. She read them on her portable communication device, and her hands began to shake. Princess Kethara, Sarah said quietly, I think we need to talk privately. The Emperor agreed to let them use a smaller meeting room. Sarah, Elena, and the princess sat around a table made of smooth black stone. Our ships are disappearing near Earth, Sarah said. Not just your escort cruisers, human ships too. But our government has been hiding the truth from us. Princess, Kethera nodded sadly. The hunger begins slowly. First a few ships here and there, then more and more. Eventually, nothing can escape. What exactly do your ancient texts say? Elena asked. The princess was quiet for a moment. Then she began to speak in a voice that sounded like she was reciting from memory. When the deep ones wake, the void grows. Teeth. Ships become food for the emptiness between stars. The world that births this hunger must be contained, or all worlds will be consumed. Sarah felt sick. Contained? What does that mean? It means, Princess Kethara said softly, that if your world cannot stop whatever is causing this hunger, my people will have no choice but to destroy it completely. We have done this before. We will do it again if we must. The room became very quiet. Sarah could hear her own heartbeat in her ears. How long do we have? Sarah asked. Princess Kethara looked out the crystal window at the stars. Not long. The hunger grows stronger every day. Soon it will be too late to stop. Sarah stood up. She had to get back to the Concordia and contact Earth immediately. But as she walked toward the door, the princess called her name. Commander Chen. There is one thing you should know. The ancient texts also speak of the world builders who refuse to surrender. Perhaps your people are not like the others we have encountered. Sarah turned back. What do you mean? Most species, when they learn their world is doomed, give up. They accept their fate. Princess Kethara's eyes seemed to glow in the crystal light. But the texts say that some world builders fight the impossible and win. Sarah felt a spark of hope. Are you saying there might be a way to fix this? I am saying, the princess replied, that if anyone can find a way, it would be humans. Dr. Elena Vasquez could not sleep. She had returned to the Concordia 3 hours ago, but her mind would not stop racing. The princess had given her access to the Zephyrian historical archives, and what she found there made her blood run cold. Elena sat in her quarters, surrounded by datapads and holographic displays showing ancient Zephyrian texts. The translation software was working overtime, but the message was becoming clear. This had happened before, many times. The first record was over 10,000 years old. A world called Kethmar had begun consuming ships. The Zephyrians had tried to help, sending their best scientists and engineers. Nothing worked. In the end, they had to use weapons that cracked the planet's core and turned it into an asteroid field. The second record was from 8,000 years ago. A species called the Vortani had accidentally created what they called a wound in space around their homeworld. Ships that came too close were pulled in and never seen again. The Zephyrians tried to negotiate, tried to help, tried everything they could think of. But the wound kept growing. Eventually it became so large that it threatened nearby star systems. The Zephyrians had been forced to evacuate 3 entire worlds before they could contain the threat. There were 12 more records just like these, worlds that had somehow damaged space itself, creating hungry voids that consumed everything around them. In every case, the Zephyrians had tried to help, and in every case, they had eventually been forced to destroy the cursed world to save everyone else. Elena's hands shook as she read the most recent entry. It was only 300 years old. A world called Thanax Prime had been experimenting with something the records called deep energy extraction. For 2 years, ships had been disappearing around their planet. The Thanax government insisted it was not their fault. They blamed pirates, equipment failures, solar storms, anything except their own experiments. By the time they admitted the truth, it was too late. The hungry void around Thanax Prime had grown so large that it was pulling in asteroids and small moons. The Zephyrians had given the Thanax people a choice: stop the experiments and evacuate their world, or be destroyed along with it. The Thanax chose to fight. They believed their technology was advanced enough to control the void they had created. They were wrong. The void consumed their entire solar system before the Zephyrians could stop it. Elena stood up and walked to the window of her quarters. She could see Veltar below, its purple oceans and crystal cities glowing in the light of 3 moons. Somewhere down there, Princess Cathara was probably reading the same records, knowing that Earth was following the exact same path as all those dead worlds. The door to Elena's quarters chimed. "Come in," she called. Commander Chen entered, looking tired and worried. "Have you found anything useful in those archives?" Elena gestured to the datapads scattered around her room. "I've found the reason why Princess Cathara is afraid to travel to Earth, and I think I know what's happening to our missing ships." Sarah sat down heavily in a chair. "Tell me." Elena picked up one of the datapads. "Earth is not the first world to develop this problem. The Zephyrians have seen it 14 times before. They call it void hunger, or the deep darkness. It happens when a civilization tries to extract energy from space itself." "Energy from space?" Sarah frowned. "What do you mean?" "I've been cross-referencing the Zephyrian records with our own scientific databases," Elena said. 6 months ago, Earth Command started something called Project Deep Well. They've been trying to harvest what they call exotic matter from the quantum foam around Earth's moon. Sarah's face went pale. "The energy crisis. They said they found a new power source that could solve all our problems." Elena nodded grimly. "According to these records, that's exactly how it always starts. A civilization facing an energy shortage discovers they can pull power directly from the fabric of space. It works perfectly at first. Clean, unlimited energy with no pollution or waste. But space doesn't like being damaged. When you tear holes in reality to steal energy, reality fights back. The holes grow larger. They start pulling in matter instead of just energy. First small objects, then ships, then entire moons and planets." Sarah was quiet for a long moment. Then she asked, "How long does it take, based on these records?" "Once the void hunger starts, most worlds have between 6 months and 2 years before it becomes unstoppable." Elena's voice was barely a whisper. "Project Deep Well started 6 months ago." Sarah stood up abruptly. "I need to contact Earth Command immediately." "Wait," Elena said. "There's more. I've been analyzing the gravitational data from our missing ships. The void around Earth isn't just growing randomly. It's growing in a specific pattern." Elena activated a holographic display that showed the solar system. Earth appeared as a blue dot, surrounded by a slowly expanding sphere of red that represented the gravitational anomaly. "Look at this trajectory," Elena said, pointing to the red sphere. "In 3 weeks, the void will be large enough to affect Mars. In 2 months, it will reach the asteroid belt. In 6 months, It will consume the entire inner solar system, Sarah finished. Elena nodded. And according to the Zephyrian records, once it gets that large, there's no way to stop it. The only option will be to destroy Earth completely. Sarah felt like the floor was falling away beneath her feet. What about the other records? Did any of those civilizations find a way to stop it? That's the strange thing, Elena said. Most of them didn't even try. Once they realized what was happening, they either evacuated their worlds or accepted destruction. Only 3 species actually fought back. What happened to them? Elena hesitated. 2 of them failed completely. Their worlds were consumed along with everything else in their solar systems. And the third? The Thanax. They managed to slow down the void's growth for almost a year. But in the end, their resistance only made things worse. When the void finally broke free of their control, it consumed everything in a matter of days instead of months. Sarah walked to the window and stared out at the alien world below. So our choices are surrender or destruction. According to Zephyrian history, yes. Elena joined her at the window. But Commander, there's something else. Something the princess said that doesn't match the historical records. What do you mean? She called humans world builders who refuse to surrender. That phrase appears in the very oldest Zephyrian texts, but it doesn't refer to any of the 14 civilizations they've encountered. It's older than that? Much older. Sarah turned to look at Elena. How much older? I think it refers to a civilization that existed before the Zephyrians became a spacefaring species, a civilization that faced the void hunger and somehow survived. Sarah felt a spark of hope for the first time since this nightmare began. Do the records say anything about how they survived? Elena shook her head. The oldest texts are more legend than history, but they all agree on one thing. The world builders found a way to turn the void's hunger against itself. Before Sarah could ask what that meant, the ship's communication system activated. Lieutenant Torres's voice filled Elena's quarters. Commander, Chen, please report to the bridge immediately. We're receiving an emergency transmission from Earth. Sarah and Elena ran through the corridors of the Concordia. When they reached the bridge, Torres looked up from his station with fear in his eyes. Commander, it's bad. A supply convoy from the outer colonies just disappeared near Earth. All 5 ships. But that's not the worst part. What's the worst part? Sarah asked. The convoy was carrying 10,000 colonists, families, children, everyone. They were coming home to Earth for the first time in years. Torres's voice cracked. Earth Command is calling it a pirate attack, but the gravitational sensors tell a different story. Sarah closed her eyes. 10,000 people, gone in an instant, consumed by humanity's attempt to solve its energy problems. There's something else, Torres continued. Princess Cathara is requesting an immediate meeting with you. She says it's urgent. Sarah opened her eyes. Maybe the princess had found something in her own records. Maybe there was still hope, I'll be down to the planet in 1 hour, Sarah said. And Torres, send a message to Earth Command. Tell them we need to talk about Project Deep Well, immediately. Princess Cathara was waiting for Sarah in the palace gardens when the human shuttle landed. The gardens were beautiful, filled with plants that glowed softly in the alien twilight. But the princess looked tired and worried, as if she had not slept in days. Commander Chen, she said as Sarah approached, I have been studying your people's history. There are things about Earth that do not match what we know about the other cursed worlds. Sarah sat down beside the princess on a bench made of crystal. Dr. Vasquez told me about the ancient texts, the world builders who refused to surrender. Do you think that refers to humans? I think it might, Cathara said slowly. But there is something else, something my father does not know yet. She pulled out a small device that projected holographic images into the air between them. I have been monitoring your communications with Earth. Your government has been lying to you about much more than just the missing ships. The hologram showed data streams that Sarah recognized as Earth Command's internal communications, but this information had been classified at the highest levels. Only the most senior officials should have access to it. How did you get this? Sarah asked. Zephyrian technology is very advanced, Cathara said simply. We have been watching. your world carefully since you first contacted us. What we found is disturbing. The hologram changed to show documents marked with the Earth Command seal. Sarah read them with growing horror. Project Deepwell was not an accident. It was not a desperate attempt to solve Earth's energy crisis. It was a weapon. The documents showed that Earth Command had known about the Zephyrian Empire for much longer than they had told the public. They had been studying captured alien technology for decades. When they learned about the Zephyrians' advanced weapons and vast empire, they had become afraid. Earth's leaders believed that humanity would eventually have to fight the aliens for control of the galaxy. They decided that humans needed a weapon powerful enough to destroy entire enemy fleets. The exotic matter experiments were designed to create artificial black holes that could be used as weapons against alien worlds. They knew this would happen, Sarah whispered, staring at the documents. They knew ships would disappear, they knew the void would grow, they did it anyway. Princess Kithara nodded sadly. Your leaders believed they could control it. They thought they could create the void hunger around Earth and then somehow aim it at their enemies. They were wrong. Sarah stood up and began pacing around the garden. Her mind was racing. But if they created this on purpose, they must have some kind of plan to control it. There has to be a way to shut it down. Read the next document, Kithara said quietly. Sarah looked at the hologram again. The final document was a message from Earth's president to the head of Project Deepwell. It was dated only 2 days ago. The message was short and brutal. Earth Command had lost control of the void. They could not shut it down. They could not slow it down. They could not direct it at enemy targets. The exotic matter extraction had torn holes in space that were growing larger every hour. But the worst part was the final paragraph. Earth's leaders had decided that the best option was to evacuate the planet and let the void consume the entire solar system. They believed this would destroy any evidence of their weapon research and prevent other species from learning how to create void weapons. They were planning to abandon Earth completely. All 8 billion people would be loaded onto colony ships and sent to distant worlds. Earth itself would be left to die. They are cowards, Sarah said, her voice filled with anger. They created this mess and now they want to run away and let billions of people die. Not just people, Kithara said. The void around Earth is already affecting the space lanes that my people use for trade. If it continues to grow, it will eventually threaten our worlds as well. My father is preparing our containment fleet. Sarah felt cold. Containment fleet? Weapons designed to destroy cursed worlds before they can spread their hunger to other systems. Kithara's voice was sad but firm. If Earth cannot stop the void, we will have to destroy your world completely. It is the only way to protect the rest of the galaxy. How long do we have? 3 weeks, maybe 4. After that, the void will be too large for even our weapons to contain safely. Sarah sat back down on the crystal bench. Everything was falling apart. Earth's government had betrayed humanity by creating this weapon. Now they planned to abandon the planet and let it be destroyed. And the Zephyrians were preparing to kill Earth to save themselves. There has to be another way, Sarah said. The ancient texts you mentioned, the world builders who survived. What did they do differently? Kithara was quiet for a moment. Then she said, the texts are not clear. They speak in metaphors and riddles. But there is one passage that might be important. She touched her device, and new text appeared in the hologram. The words were in an ancient Zephyrian script, but the translation appeared below them. When the deep darkness comes to feast, the world builders must feed it truth instead of lies. The hunger that devours matter can be satisfied with energy. The void that consumes ships can be filled with light. But only those who face the darkness without fear can turn the predator into protector. Sarah read the passage 3 times, but she could not understand what it meant. Feed it truth instead of lies? Turn the predator into protector? I have been thinking about this for hours, Kithara said. I believe it means that the void can be changed somehow. Instead of consuming things, it could be made to produce things. Instead of destroying, it could create. That sounds impossible. So does extracting energy from the quantum foam, Kithara pointed out. Your people already did one impossible thing. Perhaps they can do another. Sarah stood up again. I need to get back to my ship. I have to contact Earth and tell them what I know. Wait, Kithara said. There is one more thing. The ancient texts say that turning the void requires someone to enter it directly, to go into the darkness and change it from within. That sounds like suicide. Yes, Kithara agreed. It does. But the texts also say that the world builders who tried this had something the other species did not. They had what the ancient language calls the fire that burns in airless void. Sarah frowned. What does that mean? I am not certain, but I think it refers to something unique about your species, something that allows you to survive where others would die. As Sarah walked back toward her shuttle, she thought about what the princess had said. Humans were different from other species in many ways. They were stubborn. They refused to give up even when the situation seemed hopeless. They found ways to survive in environments that should have killed them. But was that enough? Could human stubbornness really overcome a force that had destroyed 14 other civilizations? Back on the Concordia, Sarah called her senior officers, together for an emergency meeting. She told them everything she had learned from Princess Kithara. The room was silent when she finished. So our choices are evacuation or destruction, Lieutenant Torres said finally. No, Sarah said firmly. Those are Earth Command's choices, but we are not Earth Command. We are explorers. We are problem solvers. We are humans. Dr. Vasquez leaned forward. What are you suggesting, Commander? Sarah looked around the table at her officers. These were good people, brave people. People who had volunteered to travel across the galaxy to make contact with an alien species they knew nothing about. I am suggesting, Sarah said, that we find a third option. Princess Kithara thinks the void can be turned into something useful, instead of something destructive. The ancient texts talk about entering the darkness and changing it from within. That would be a suicide mission, Torres said. Maybe, Sarah agreed. But maybe not. We have 3 weeks to figure out how to do the impossible, and if anyone can do the impossible, it is us. Dr. Vasquez smiled. Where do we start? Sarah looked out the window at the stars. We start by doing what humans do best. We refuse to accept that the problem cannot be solved. 2 weeks later, Commander Sarah Chen stood in the shuttle bay of the Concordia, looking at the strangest ship she had ever seen. It was built from both human and Zephyrian technology, welded together in ways that should not have worked, but somehow, Dr. Vasquez had spent every waking hour working with Princess Kithara and the best engineers from both species. They had created something that was part exploration vessel, part scientific laboratory, and part controlled bomb. If their theory was correct, this ship could survive inside the void around Earth and somehow change its nature from destructive to constructive. If their theory was wrong, Sarah would die horribly and Earth would still be doomed. The power core is stable, Vasquez reported, checking her instruments one more time. The Zephyrian gravity shields are working perfectly with our exotic matter detectors, and the quantum transmitter should let us stay in contact with you, even from inside the void. Sarah nodded and put on her environmental suit. The ship was designed to operate in conditions that no human had ever experienced. The void around Earth was not empty space. It was something much stranger and more dangerous. Princess Kithara approached carrying a small crystal device. This contains everything we know about void manipulation from the ancient texts. If you can reach the center of the void and activate this device, it should begin the reversal process. Should, Sarah repeated. You mean you are not certain it will work? Nothing is certain, Kithara admitted. But the texts are clear about one thing. Only someone with the fire that burns in airless void can do this. We believe that refers to human determination and refusal to surrender. Sarah took the crystal device and clipped it to her belt. What exactly am I supposed to do once I get to the center? According to the texts, you must feed the void truth instead of lies, Kithara said. We think this means you need to reverse the exotic matter extraction process. Instead of stealing energy from space, you need to give energy back to space. Sarah looked at the hybrid ship. Its power core contained enough energy to run a small city for a year. If she could somehow channel all of that energy into the void at exactly the right moment, it might heal the damage that Project Deepwell had caused. Or it might make everything much worse. There is one more thing, Kethera said quietly. The ancient texts say that changing the void requires a willing sacrifice. Someone who chooses to face the darkness not for glory or revenge but to protect others. Sarah understood. This was not just about technical knowledge or advanced technology. It was about the choice to risk everything for people who might never even know what she had done. I have to go alone? Sarah asked. The void will only accept one person at a time, Kethera said. But you will not be completely alone. Dr. Vasquez will monitor everything from here, and I will be praying to the ancient spirits for your success. Sarah climbed into the pilot's seat of the hybrid ship. The controls were a mixture of human and Zephyrian designs, but she had practiced with them for 2 weeks. She could fly this ship even if half the systems failed. The journey from Veltar to Earth took only 3 days using Zephyrian faster-than-light technology. But those 3 days felt like the longest of Sarah's life. She spent most of the time reading the ancient texts that Princess Kethera had given her, trying to understand what she was supposed to do once she reached the void. When Earth appeared on her screens, Sarah barely recognized her home planet. The void around it was visible now, a sphere of twisted space that bent light in impossible ways. Ships that came too close were stretched and pulled apart before disappearing completely. Concordia, this is Chen, Sarah said into her radio. I am beginning my approach to the void. Copy that, Commander, came Vasquez's voice. All sensors are recording. Whatever happens, we will learn from it. As Sarah's ship entered the edge of the void, everything changed. Her instruments went crazy, showing readings that made no sense. Gravity pulled in 6 different directions at once. Time moved faster and slower at the same time. The hull of her ship began to glow with energy that had no source. But Sarah kept flying deeper into the void. This was what humans did. They flew into the unknown. They faced impossible odds. They refused to give up even when everything told them to run away. At the center of the void, Sarah found something incredible. It was not empty space or twisted matter. It was a wound in reality itself, bleeding energy into dimensions that should not exist. But it was not malicious or evil. It was simply hungry, like a wild animal that had been trapped and was lashing out in fear. Sarah activated the crystal device that Princess Kethera had given her. Immediately, she understood what the ancient texts meant. The void was not trying to destroy anything. It was trying to return to its natural state. But the exotic matter extraction had damaged it so badly that it could only heal by consuming everything around it. Sarah began rerouting all of her ship's power into the void, not as fuel for destruction, but as medicine for something that was badly injured. She felt the void's hunger begin to change as energy flowed into it. Instead of consuming matter, it began to create it. Instead of pulling ships apart, it began to generate new space around them. The process was working, but it required more energy than her ship could provide. Sarah made a choice that she had known she might have to make from the beginning. She overloaded the ship's power core and directed all of its energy into the void at once. The explosion was visible from 3 star systems away, but it was not a destructive explosion. It was an explosion of creation, of healing, of space itself being repaired and made whole again. When the light faded, the void around Earth was gone. In its place was something that no one had expected. The exotic matter extraction sites had been transformed into generators that produced clean energy without damaging space. The gravitational anomalies had become stable travel lanes that made faster-than-light travel safer and easier. Sarah's ship was gone, but sensors detected something impossible. A small life pod, protected by Zephyrian shields and human determination, drifting safely in normal space. Princess Kethera was the first to speak when Sarah was brought aboard the Concordia. The ancient texts were right. Humans truly are the world builders who refuse to surrender. Sarah was tired and shaken but alive. It was not just human stubbornness, she said. It was cooperation, human engineering, Zephyrian wisdom, and the willingness to risk everything to protect others. Emperor Thakvan's message arrived an hour later. The Zephyrian Empire was formally requesting an alliance with humanity. They wanted to learn from the species that had turned a weapon of destruction into a tool of creation. Princess Cathara finally agreed to visit Earth, but not as a hostage or diplomatic bargaining chip. She came as a friend, eager to see the world that had taught her people that some problems could be solved instead of simply contained. And in the years that followed, when other species encountered the void hunger around their worlds, they did not call the Zephyrians to destroy the cursed planets. They called the humans who had learned how to heal the wounds in space itself and turn darkness into light. Because that was what humans did. They took impossible problems and found impossible solutions. They refused to accept that anything was truly hopeless. And they proved that sometimes the best way to defeat an enemy was to heal it instead of destroying it.